She built ESPN's First Take into must-watch TV, balancing chaos and fire for 10 unforgettable years. But her abrupt exit left fans stunned. Was this truly a resignation? Or did ESPN's owners slam her behind the scenes, forcing Molly into a decision nobody saw coming? The shock of the announcement. On September 16, 2025, Molly Qerim announced that she was resigning from ESPN, effective immediately. She had been the face and moderator of First Take for 10 years. She wasn't let go. She wasn't terminated. She chose to step away after her contract negotiations stalled, and she signed on for a new venture elsewhere, though the details of that new role have been kept under wraps for now, according to USA Today. But here's where things got messy. The abrupt nature of her exit, the timing of the announcement, and the emotional reactions from colleagues like Stephen A. Smith fueled an online storm. Fans speculated wildly. Former ESPN employees hinted at deeper drama, and the YouTube ecosystem did what it always does best, took a kernel of truth and inflated it into viral clickbait. Suddenly, the narrative was no longer about a respected host making a tough career decision. Instead, the buzz became about ESPN ownership allegedly slamming her after some kind of secret firing. And that's where the story begins to take on a life of its own. Let's set the stage. On September 16th, 2025, First Take viewers tuned in as usual, expecting to see Molly Qerim sitting at the center desk, steering the conversation between Stephen A. Smith and whatever guest analyst was in the chair that morning. Instead, they were met with a bombshell. That very morning, news had broken across sports outlets. Molly Qerim had resigned from ESPN, effective immediately, after declining a contract extension. There would be no farewell tour, no goodbye show at the end of the season, no chance for fans to slowly adjust to her absence. Just like that, she was gone. ESPN executives confirmed the news publicly. Burke Magnus, ESPN's president of content, put out a statement calling her a wonderful teammate and acknowledging that the two sides simply weren't aligned on the future, according to Yahoo Sports. In other words, this wasn't a firing. This was a breakdown in negotiations, one that Qerim ultimately chose to resolve by walking away. But fans didn't care about the nuance. Within hours, hashtags like #MollyFired and #MollySlammed were trending on X. Dozens of YouTube videos popped up with thumbnails screaming ESPN fires Molly and owners slam Qerim. The facts became irrelevant in the face of the narrative that people found juicier. Now, if you've watched First Take for any length of time, you know that Stephen A. Smith is not just another television personality. He is the personality, the beating heart of the show, the loudest voice in sports media, and the face of ESPN itself. And when news of Qerim's departure hit, all eyes were on him. Would he downplay it? Would he spin the story in ESPN's favor? Or would he reveal a more raw personal reaction? We didn't have to wait long for the answer. On the very next episode of First Take, Stephen A. opened the show not with his usual bombastic energy, but with a somber tribute.
Good morning and welcome to First Take. Normally, our friend Molly Qerim would greet you. However, Molly announced last night she will be departing from ESPN. She's hosted First Take for 10 years and elevated the show with her grace, her expertise, her incomparable kindness. She's been an enormous part of our success for a decade.
That wasn't the Stephen A. Smith we're used to. That wasn't the fire-breathing debate machine yelling about the Cowboys or dismantling some analyst's take on LeBron James. That was a man losing a colleague, a partner, and as he would later say, a friend. Later that same day on his SiriusXM show, Smith opened up even more.
Last night, she abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement. Molly is a friend. Molly is a co-worker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me. We've been partners on the show for the last 10 years.
These were not the words of a man happy to see her go. These were not the words of a company man trying to spin her departure as a win for ESPN. These were the words of someone blindsided, saddened, and perhaps even a little frustrated by how quickly things unraveled. And that frustration came through even more when Smith admitted
it was a contract negotiation that was going on. ESPN certainly did not want to lose her. But in the end, she made a decision to walk away from the show effective immediately.
Notice the choice of words. Uncomfortable, abrupt, not happy about it. Stephen A. didn't slam Molly. He didn't accuse her of anything, but he just hinted, that there was more to the story than what was being said publicly. And in the vacuum of details, fans and former colleagues rushed to fill in the blanks. On paper, ESPN handled Qerim's departure with grace. Magnus praised her. Smith honored her. No one within the company spoke negatively about her, and there were no reports of internal drama spilling into the open. But in the public imagination, things looked very different. Social media thrives on controversy. Fans love to speculate. And when Smith in his SiriusXM monologue said, "That was all people needed to hear," to some it sounded like Smith was covering up a scandal. To others it sounded like a veiled shot at Qerim herself. The ambiguity created an opening, one that YouTube creators, bloggers, and ex-users alike exploited. Suddenly, theories emerged that Qerim had been forced out, that she had been lowballed to the point of humiliation, or that she and Smith had some kind of personal falling out. Some former ESPN personalities, like Chris Mad Dog Russo, even criticized Smith for hinting at more to the story without actually clarifying it, saying it only made things worse for Qerim according to Yahoo Sports. And once that snowball started rolling, it didn't stop. The irony of all this is that ESPN executives were saying the opposite of slamming her. Burke Magnus went out of his way to praise her. Stephen A. called her a friend. The network handled it publicly with professionalism and respect. But fans online don't always want the truth. They want drama. On X, users started spinning conspiracies that Qerim had been betrayed by ESPN. Others suggested she was backstabbed in negotiations. Some tied her exit to old controversies, like her comments about Caitlin Clark being overhyped in 2024. Others dredged up her divorce from Jalen Rose, suggesting, without evidence, that personal drama played a role in her career trajectory. In that environment, phrases like ESPN owners slam Molly began to take hold. They weren't rooted, in fact. They weren't supported by sources, but they were viral. They were sticky. And in the court of public opinion, they became the dominant narrative. The truth is simple, but the narrative is messy. And as we move into the next part of this story, that messiness only grows. Because Molly Qerim's departure wasn't just about her walking away from a contract. It was about the deeper issues inside ESPN: pay equity, role security, creative control, and the growing tension between a network fighting to stay dominant and the talent that makes it relevant. Why did one of ESPN's most visible and respected personalities decide to walk away? Why did negotiations collapse when on paper both sides seemed to want her to stay? And perhaps most importantly, why did Stephen A. Smith, the man who arguably benefited most from her moderation skills over the past decade, leave breadcrumbs that fueled more rumors than answers? The surface level story was simple. Molly and ESPN couldn't agree on a new contract. But when you pull back the curtain, the details reveal a much bigger picture about the sports media industry, about gender and pay equity, and about the sometimes toxic dynamic between star talents and the moderators who hold their shows together. The sports media world was divided. Some praised Qerim for walking away on her own terms. Others criticized Stephen A. for hinting at drama without offering clarity. Columnists pointed out that Molly's story mirrored a broader trend at ESPN, where moderators, anchors, and women in particular are often treated as interchangeable parts, while star personalities are showered with massive contracts. As one outlet put it, her resignation wasn't about a scandal. It was about the value ESPN assigns to different roles and who gets to decide what's replaceable. But here's the thing. Molly Qerim's story doesn't end with her walking away from ESPN. If anything, her departure opens the next chapter of her career, one that could see her land an even bigger role at a rival network. A predictable exit. When a public figure leaves a powerful platform like ESPN, especially under circumstances that are sudden, ambiguous, and emotional, the story never really ends with the resignation. Instead, the vacuum left behind is quickly filled, not just with speculation about why they left, but with reminders of every single controversy, every single hot take, and every single misstep they've ever made. And for Molly Qerim, the host who had spent nearly a decade steering First Take through some of its most viral and contentious debates, her departure in September 2025 wasn't just about what happened in the boardroom with contract negotiations. It was about her entire tenure at ESPN being reframed, re-examined, and in many cases weaponized against her. From her comments about Caitlin Clark, to gossip about her divorce, to being the subject of sexist ridicule by pundits outside the network, Molly Qerim's past controversies became ammunition in the battle to define her exit. But here's the twist. While critics and conspiracy theorists tried to spin those controversies into proof that she had been slammed or fired by ESPN, Molly herself was already plotting her next chapter, a chapter that may see her rise higher than ever before. To understand how Molly's exit was framed by fans online, you have to go back to June 2024. That's when Molly Qerim, in her role as First Take moderator, weighed in on one of the biggest sports debates of the year. Caitlin Clark, the NCAA's all-time scoring leader turned WNBA rookie, had just been snubbed from the U.S. Olympic women's basketball roster. During a heated segment, Qerim dared to say what some analysts were already whispering, but few were willing to state outright that Clark might be overhyped. Her words, paraphrased from the segment, went something like this: "There's been a lot of hype around Caitlin Clark, and I think some of it is a bit overblown. She's phenomenal, but she's a rookie. She's not at the level yet to be taking spots from veterans who've proven it on the biggest stages." On its face, it was a fair take. Clark was averaging impressive numbers, around 16 points and 7 assists per game, but also had high turnovers and was still adjusting to the professional game. From a basketball perspective, Molly's point was valid. Experience mattered when selecting a team to compete at the Olympics, but the backlash was immediate and brutal. On X, hashtags like #FireMolly trended. Fans accused her of being jealous, of undermining women athletes, of downplaying Clark's cultural impact. Clips of her remarks went viral on YouTube with titles like "Molly Qerim fired from ESPN broadcast for hating on Caitlin Clark," even though, of course, she wasn't fired at all according to Sportskeeda. ESPN stood by her and Molly herself avoided addressing the backlash directly. A few days later, she pivoted by praising Clark's potential, saying, "Caitlin's got a bright future and she's already lifting the WNBA." But the damage had been done. The incident never truly went away. And when Molly left ESPN in September 2025, critics resurfaced those clips, framing them as the real reason behind her exit, despite the fact that her resignation was rooted in contract disputes, not controversies. The Caitlin Clark controversy wasn't the only time Molly faced fan backlash. Earlier in 2024, during the NCAA Women's Basketball Championship, she quipped that Caitlin Clark is lucky UConn isn't healthy. As a proud UConn alumna, the remark was meant half in jest, but Iowa fans didn't take it that way. Reddit threads lit up with accusations of East Coast bias and dismissing the Midwest program. Again, no consequences from ESPN, but the perception stuck. To some fans, Molly wasn't just a moderator, she was a biased voice who couldn't separate her alma mater loyalty from her professional role. And this is part of the challenge of being a moderator on a debate show like First Take. When you're the one steering conversations designed to spark outrage, it's almost impossible not to get caught in the crossfire. Every word you say, every framing of a question, every moment of levity can be interpreted as bias, jealousy, or worse. Outside of the studio, Molly also faced the tabloid treatment. Her marriage to former NBA player and ESPN colleague Jalen Rose ended in divorce in 2018. And while the split was amicable on paper, rumors of infidelity swirled for years. Social media accounts speculated wildly about whether Molly had relationships with other athletes or co-workers. None of it was ever substantiated. None of it was ever addressed publicly, but it lingered in the background of her career. And when she resigned from ESPN in 2025, those old rumors resurfaced. X threads filled with gossip that her personal life drama had caught up to her, or that she was leaving under pressure from higher-ups tired of the headlines. Again, no evidence. Again, all speculation. But in the narrative machine of the internet, perception often outweighs fact. Perhaps the most recent and blatant example of how Molly was disrespected in sports media came just days after her resignation. Conservative commentator Jason Whitlock mocked her by inducting her into his so-called Sports Media Eye Candy Hall of Fame, praising her looks rather than her work. He suggested she was there to look good next to Stephen A., reducing nearly 2 decades of professional broadcasting to a sexist punchline, according to the Shadow League. The backlash was immediate. Fans and journalists alike slammed Whitlock for perpetuating outdated stereotypes and diminishing Molly's career. But in a way, his comments encapsulated the very problem she had been battling her entire career: the constant dismissal of her work as merely superficial, even as she held together one of the most volatile shows on television. Controversy as narrative fuel. So why do these controversies matter in the context of Molly's resignation? Because in the days and weeks after she left ESPN, they became the scaffolding of the conspiracy theories. People didn't want to believe that she left because of contract disputes. That's too boring, too tidy. Instead, they pointed to Caitlin Clark backlash. They pointed to UConn bias. They pointed to divorce rumors. They pointed to Whitlock's insults. They created a narrative where Molly wasn't walking away. She was being pushed. She was being punished. She was being slammed by the very owners who had tolerated her for too long. The truth that she resigned on her own terms after rejecting an offer she felt undervalued her got buried under the weight of clickbait and controversy. But while the internet rehashed her past, Molly herself was already focused on the future. According to reports, the moment she walked out of ESPN, the offers started pouring in. Fox Sports reportedly dangled a multi-million-dollar deal to lure her away, according to Larry Brown Sports. NBC Sports and Amazon Prime Video were also rumored to be interested, especially as both networks expand their NBA and NFL coverage. On September 19th, just 3 days after leaving ESPN, Molly posted a cryptic Instagram story. "Exciting things ahead. Stay tuned." That post, screenshotted and shared on X, fueled speculation that she had already inked a new deal. Her salary at ESPN, around $500,000 to $600,000 annually, was respectable, but far below what Fox Sports has been willing to pay big-name personalities. A new contract elsewhere could easily double, if not triple, her earnings. And more than the money, a new role might give Molly what she had long sought: creative freedom, a chance to host her own show rather than simply moderate someone else's. Meanwhile, back at ESPN, First Take felt the absence. Stephen A. Smith continued to pay tribute to Molly, calling her a friend and praising her professionalism. But fans noticed the change in the show's dynamic. Without her steady hand at the center, debates seemed more chaotic, more disjointed. Guest hosts filled the chair, but the chemistry wasn't the same. Some fans even speculated that Smith himself might eventually regret not pushing harder for Molly to stay. Because while he remains the biggest star at ESPN, even the loudest voices need someone to keep the show together. And for 10 years, that someone was Molly Qerim. Molly's story is not just about one woman leaving one show. It's about the value networks assign to different kinds of talent. It's about the invisible labor of moderators, often women, who do the work of steering chaos without receiving the same recognition or pay as the men they keep in check. It's about how controversies, fair or unfair, can shape the perception of someone's career long after the actual incidents fade. And it's about how, in the world of sports media, endings are rarely just endings. They're transitions, setups for whatever comes next. So where does Molly Qerim go from here? If the rumors are true, she's about to land somewhere even bigger, perhaps with Fox Sports, perhaps with NBC, perhaps with a streaming giant like Amazon. Wherever she goes, she won't just be the moderator of a debate show. She'll be the face of a new project with the creative control she long craved. And maybe that's the real twist in this story, because for all the talk about her being fired, slammed, or pushed out, the reality is that Molly Qerim left on her own terms, and she may just come out stronger because of it. In the end, ESPN didn't fire Molly Qerim. They underestimated her. And in this industry, underestimating someone like Molly is the surest way to regret it. And so we arrive at the end of the story, or perhaps more accurately, the end of the beginning of a new story. Because when Molly Qerim walked out of ESPN on that September night in 2025, she didn't just leave behind a desk, a set, and a chair in the middle of First Take studio. She left behind an entire era, an era defined by heated debates, viral controversies, and the constant push and pull between personality and moderation. But to truly understand what Molly's departure means for her, for ESPN, for Stephen A. Smith, and for sports media at large, we need to zoom out. We need to take the threads we've unraveled in parts 1, 2, and 3 and weave them back together into a bigger picture. Because this story was never just about a contract dispute. It was never just about one man's tribute to his departing colleague. It was never just about a Caitlin Clark comment or a UConn bias quip or even a sexist insult hurled from outside the network. Molly Qerim, the charismatic and intelligent host of ESPN's First Take, has been a household name in sports broadcasting for nearly 2 decades. With a career spanning over 19 years, Qerim has established herself as one of the most respected women in sports media. Her journey with ESPN began in 2006, and she has since become an integral part of the network's sports discussion programming. Qerim joined ESPN in 2006, starting in digital and mobile content production. Her talent and dedication quickly earned her a spot in the news team in 2008. This role allowed her to showcase her journalistic skills and versatility, setting the stage for future opportunities. In 2015, Qerim stepped in as the interim host of First Take, impressing audiences with her professionalism and ability to navigate live television's unpredictable nature. Her success in this role led to her being named the permanent host, a position she held for nearly a decade. As the face of First Take, Qerim engaged in thought-provoking discussions about trending sports topics, often finding a balance between strong personalities like Stephen A. Smith and guest analysts. Qerim's impact on First Take and sports broadcasting as a whole cannot be overstated. She brought a unique blend of intelligence, humor, and fairness to the show, making it a must-watch for sports enthusiasts. Her ability to mediate between strong opinions and keep discussions balanced earned her widespread respect. Stephen A. Smith, her co-host and friend, praised her for being a consummate professional and credited her with making his job easier. After nearly 10 years as the host of First Take, Qerim announced that she would be leaving the show at the end of 2025. According to sources, ESPN offered her a new contract, but she declined, choosing to move on to new opportunities. Qerim's decision shocked fans and colleagues alike, with many expressing sadness and gratitude for her contributions to the show. Qerim's departure marks the end of an era for First Take, but it also signals the beginning of a new chapter in her career. While she hasn't disclosed her future plans, speculation suggests she may launch her own digital show or podcast, pursue opportunities at other networks, or focus on personal ventures outside of sports. Her "stay tuned" remark has generated excitement and curiosity among fans, eager to see what's next for this talented sports broadcaster. Stephen A. Smith described Qerim's departure as abrupt and expressed his sadness about losing a colleague and friend who had been an integral part of the show's success. Fans have taken to social media to thank Qerim for her years of service, praising her intelligence, humor, and fairness on air. Molly Qerim's future looks bright, with several possibilities on the horizon. After declining a new contract with ESPN, she's exploring new opportunities that may take her beyond sports broadcasting. Molly Qerim could launch her own digital show or podcast, leveraging her expertise and charisma to build a loyal audience. Competing networks like Fox Sports or NBC Sports might pursue her for hosting opportunities, capitalizing on her experience and reputation. With her impressive resume, Qerim may focus on philanthropy, writing, or entrepreneurship, utilizing her skills to make a positive impact. Her media presence and charm could also lead to opportunities in entertainment, such as TV shows, films, or even hosting award ceremonies. Recently, Qerim has landed her first gig since leaving ESPN, moderating a live Quanda session with UConn men's basketball coach Dan Hurley at the University of Connecticut. This event marks a symbolic return to her alma mater and a chance to reconnect with her roots. The move suggests she's taking deliberate steps to stay in the public eye while exploring new opportunities. As Qerim embarks on this new chapter, fans and colleagues alike are eager to see what's in store for her. With her "stay tuned" remark, it's clear she has plans in motion, and we can expect exciting developments in the near future. With Qerim's exit confirmed by ESPN, several potential replacements have been mentioned, including Christine Williamson, Charlie Arnold, and Ashley Brewer. The network is expected to select a new host before Qerim's departure. This story is about the messy collision between perception and reality, between rumor and fact, between what the internet believes and what actually happened. And most importantly, it's about what happens next. Thanks for watching. Check out other cards on the screen.